The great academy of scholars stood on the edge of a shining world called Orontis Prime. It was a world of blue metal towers and silver clouds, known across the galaxy as the home of knowledge and intellect. Every species sent their best students here, hoping to learn the secrets of the past and the skills of the future. Among the thousands of cadets who arrived that season, one stood out not because of power or size, but because of simplicity. His name was Ali, a young human from Earth. He carried no glowing devices or robotic assistance. He wore a plain uniform and had only one thing in his hand. Other cadets from advanced worlds noticed him and began to whisper. Some smiled with pity, others with amusement. They came from species that used mind-link translators and thought crystals. To them, humans were primitive, species that barely survived on a harsh planet. When Ali entered the Hall of Trials, he looked around quietly. The hall was vast, filled with tall columns covered in shining patterns. Each column displayed floating text in dozens of alien languages. Above them, a glowing message appeared in silver letters. Trial 1, the ancient script of Korthus. It was the first and most difficult test of the new season. The Korthus civilization had vanished 10,000 years ago, leaving behind only their writings. No one had yet translated the full script. The challenge was not just about knowing words, it was about understanding the mind of an extinct people. Instructor Vara, a tall being with 4 crystal eyes and a calm tone, stood before the cadets. She spoke with authority. Each of you will receive a section of the Korthus tablets. You must translate as much as you can within 12 hours. The one who understands the hidden meaning of the text will move to the next level. A murmur spread across the hall. Cadets prepared their tools. Translation tablets blinked to life. Mind links connected. A hum of energy filled the air. Ali found his seat near the back. In front of him lay a metal tablet covered with sharp, glowing symbols. Each symbol looked different, some curved, some straight, some layered with tiny dots. The moment he touched it, he felt a strange warmth, like the words themselves were alive. He took out his pen and notebook. The cadet beside him, a thin alien with silver skin, looked at him with surprise. "You still use ink?" the cadet asked with a small laugh. Ali smiled softly. "It helps me think." The cadet shook his head and turned back to his glowing screen. The trial began with a deep tone echoing through the hall. Every cadet focused. Screens flashed with data. Some used algorithms to match symbols. Others tried to find connections between old records. Ali, however, did not open any digital tool. He stared at the tablet for several minutes, studying the shapes of each symbol. He noticed how one symbol repeated in many places, but with slight changes. The lines grew thicker or thinner, and sometimes dots appeared beside them. He began to draw them one by one in his notebook. While others rushed, Ali stayed calm. His hand moved slowly, copying each symbol with care. He whispered the shapes under his breath, giving them sounds that felt natural. Time passed. The hall glowed with energy. Cadets frowned, frustrated by strange combinations of symbols that made no sense. Instructor Vara walked through the rows, watching the students. When she reached Ali's table, she stopped. "You are writing by hand?" she asked. "Yes," Ali replied. "Why?" "I learn better this way. When I draw something, I see its rhythm." Ada tilted her head. "Rhythm. This is language, not music." Ali smiled. "Every language has a rhythm, even if we don't hear it." The instructor said nothing more and continued walking. Hours passed. The cadet beside Ali began to complain. "These symbols don't match anything in the database," he muttered. "Their logic is broken." Ali looked at his notebook. He had filled 3 pages already. He began to notice a pattern. Some symbols always appeared near lines that curved upward, like a question. Others ended with downward marks, like a full stop. He realized something: the script might not be based on spoken words at all. It might be visual emotion. Ali leaned closer, comparing 2 symbols that looked almost the same except for one small curve. To most, it was a meaningless variation, but to him, it felt like a shift in tone, like the difference between hope and sorrow. He began to organize them. grouping the ones that looked similar. Slowly, a structure appeared. The script began to make sense, not as letters, but as ideas. As the evening light dimmed, cadets were called for a short break. Ollie stayed behind, still writing. The room was quiet, except for the soft scratching of his pen. When the instructor returned, she saw Ollie still working. She looked at his notebook, and her eyes widened slightly. "You are connecting them by shape," she said. "Yes," Ollie replied. "They form patterns like waves. Each shape repeats with emotion, not with meaning." Vara frowned slightly. "That is not how translation works, Cadet Ollie." Ollie looked up calmly. "Maybe not for most species. But maybe the Korthas didn't think in your way. Or mine." Other cadets returned and overheard. Some laughed quietly. "The human is drawing art instead of translating," one whispered. Ollie ignored them. He turned the page and began writing what he believed was the first line's meaning. It was not a direct translation, but it captured the essence of what he felt from the pattern. "We record not our words, but our silence," he showed it to Vara. She studied it for a long moment, then looked at the original symbols. Her 4 crystal eyes reflected the glowing text. "How did you see this?" she asked. Ollie lifted his pen and smiled faintly. "I looked for what was missing." She stared at him quietly, then said, "Continue." Molly nodded. By the 6th hour, most cadets were exhausted. Some gave up and began copying automated guesses from their devices. Others grew frustrated, their screens flashing red errors. Ollie, however, kept writing. His notebook was almost full. He had mapped each symbol to a feeling, not a sound. When he read them together, it told a story not through direct speech, but through emotional flow. He wrote the story down carefully. It was about a civilization that recorded their peace, their fear of silence, and their wish to be remembered without sound. When he finished, he looked up and stretched his hand. His pen had run out of ink. He shook it lightly, then stood. He walked to the instructor's desk. Vara looked at him with surprise. "Are you done?" she asked. "Yes," Ollie said. "But I have a question." She raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Ollie held up his pen and asked, "Would you like it in the original font or improved for readability?" The question caught everyone's attention. The hall went silent. Every cadet turned to look. Instructor Vara blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Ollie smiled lightly. "The script is written with emotion. If I copy it as it is, only the trained will understand it. But if I improve its form, even new readers will feel what it means." The instructor tilted her head slowly. "You improved the script?" Ollie nodded. "Not changed. Only clarified." Some cadets began to whisper again, but this time the tone was uncertain. They wanted to see what he meant. Vara gestured for Ollie to continue. He placed his notebook on the screen projector. The floating display showed his handwritten pages. The alien symbols glowed beside his translations, and for the first time, they formed a flowing pattern that felt alive. The lines curved smoothly, each one connecting with the next. The audience could sense the emotion, even if they could not read the words. Vara looked at the display in silence. She could almost feel the meaning, grace, sadness, hope. "This is not translation," she said softly. "This is understanding." Ollie smiled again. "That is what translation should be." The hall stayed silent for several moments. Then one of the instructors from the upper platform leaned forward and whispered to another. The other nodded slowly. A deep chime echoed through the hall, signaling the end of the trial. The cadets sighed in relief. Some slumped in their seats. Ollie returned to his table and packed his pen and notebook. When the results appeared on the floating screen, names began to flash with their ranks. Most cadets received low scores. Then the top name appeared, Lee Human Cadet. The hall erupted in quiet disbelief. No one clapped, but all eyes turned toward him. Instructor Vara looked at the result and then back at Ollie. "Cadet, report to the observation chamber tomorrow morning," she said. Ollie nodded politely. "Yes, instructor." As he left the hall, the silver-skinned cadet who had mocked his pen earlier looked at him with surprise. "You really used that thing to win?" Ollie smiled gently. Sometimes old tools still work. He walked out of the hall into the cool night air of Orantis's prime. Above him, the stars shimmered like written words across the sky. He looked at his pen once more, the tip slightly worn, and whispered to himself, "Let's see what they ask next." The night breeze moved softly across the tower roofs. Somewhere deep inside the academy, the ancient Kortha's tablet glowed a little brighter, as if it recognized that at last, someone had truly listened, and for the first time in centuries, the language of the lost began to speak again. End of part 1. The next morning, the sky over Orantis Prime glowed in shades of soft blue and silver. The sun was gentle, but the tall glass towers caught its light and scattered it like crystal rain. The great academy was already alive with activity. Cadets rushed through shining halls, some proud of their scores, others lost in thought about the next trial. Ollie walked quietly through the central corridor. He carried the same small bag and the same simple pen. His calm steps echoed softly on the polished floor. The other cadets glanced at him as he passed. Some nodded with respect now, others looked with curiosity. No one laughed this time. The human who had used a pen to defeat their best machines had gained quiet fame overnight. When he reached the observation chamber, 2 tall doors opened with a smooth sound. Inside was a large circular room. The floor shimmered like glass, and in the center stood a long table surrounded by instructors. Holographic images floated above them, showing symbols, charts, moving patterns of light. Instructor Vara was there, standing beside the table. She looked at Ali and nodded once. Cadet Ali stepped forward. Ali walked to the center and stopped. He looked around the room. The air was cooler here, filled with a faint hum of energy. At the far end, a large sphere of blue light floated above a platform. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Vara gestured toward it. "This is the Central Archive Core. It contains every known record of the Kortha's civilization. After your result yesterday, the Academy Council decided to test your understanding further. The core has given us a new fragment. We believe it may contain information about their final days." Ali looked at the glowing sphere with interest. "You want me to translate it?" "Not just translate," Vara said. "We want you to explain what it means. The machines cannot make sense of it. The syntax is inconsistent. We want to know how you see it." Ali nodded. "I'll try." A thin beam of light extended from the sphere, forming a floating panel of text in front of him. The symbols glowed faintly, moving like waves. The other instructors leaned forward. Ali stared at the script for a long moment. He didn't rush. He let his eyes follow the curves and lines. Then he took his pen and notebook again. The instructors exchanged surprised glances. "You still write by hand?" one of them asked. Ali smiled slightly. "It helps me listen." He began to copy the symbols. As the pen moved, he noticed how the patterns changed. Some lines curved inward like shelter. Others reached outward, like hope. There was rhythm again, gentle and emotional. After several minutes, Ali spoke softly. "This is not just text. It's a record of feelings. These symbols describe a storm, not of weather, but of minds. The Korthos were afraid of something." Vara leaned closer. "Afraid of what?" Ali continued to study. "They speak of a silence spreading among their stars. They say their voices were fading. They feared being forgotten." The instructors whispered among themselves. One said, "Our databases never suggested fear. We thought the Korthos ended peacefully." Ali shook his head. "No, these lines here see how they break mid-curve. That shows panic. The structure collapses. They were losing connection, maybe communication or memory." He wrote more notes. The room stayed silent except for the sound of the pen. After an hour, Ali put his pen down. "I think I understand the message," he said. "Explain," Vara said. Ali turned the notebook so everyone could see. "The Korthos built something to preserve themselves. Maybe a network or a memory field. But it didn't work. They left this record hoping someone would hear them one day."
Ow.
The sphere pulsed brighter, as if responding. The instructors looked at it with surprise. One said it reacted. Ollie looked at the sphere curiously. Maybe it recognizes the meaning. Vara stared at the glowing core. That has never happened before. The core has been silent for centuries. The sphere shimmered again. A soft sound filled the air, almost like a whisper. The symbols on the panel rearranged themselves, forming a new line of text. Ollie read it slowly. It says, "Who hears the silence?" The room went completely still. The instructors looked at each other, uncertain what to do. Vara turned to Allie. "What should we answer?" Ollie smiled gently. "Maybe just listen first." He placed his hand near the panel. The symbols moved faster, glowing in warm colors. They formed new lines that only Ollie seemed to understand. His eyes followed each curve carefully. After a few minutes, he said, "It is telling a story." The Korthas tried to record their memories, but they realized that words could not hold feelings. They created symbols that carried emotion. But when they vanished, no one was left to feel those emotions again. That is the silence they feared. Vara nodded slowly. "And now the silence is broken because you felt it." Allie looked at the sphere. Maybe it's just waiting for someone who understands emotion as language. The sphere pulsed again, brighter this time. The instructors backed away slightly. A beam of light stretched across the room and projected an image in the air. It showed a star system, glowing faintly. Allie recognized it from the ancient maps. "That's the Korthas' home system," Vara said. "It has been unreachable for ages. The coordinates are locked by unknown codes." The sphere flickered, and the coordinates appeared clearly. One of the instructors gasped. "It's giving us the key." Ollie watched quietly. He felt something inside him, a strange warmth. It wasn't fear. It was connection, as if the Korthas themselves were thanking him. Vara looked at him. "Cadet Ollie, this event is beyond our records. The Council will want to see you. You may have unlocked the first direct response from the Korthas core in 10,000 years. Allie nodded calmly. "I only tried to listen differently." Instructors began copying data. The sphere slowly dimmed, returning to its quiet state. But before it fully faded, one last message appeared on the screen. Ollie read it aloud. It says, "The one who hears us will find the gate." Vara frowned. The gate. Ollie closed his notebook. Maybe a location. Maybe something more. She nodded thoughtfully. "You will accompany us when we investigate this? The Council will decide tonight." Ollie bowed slightly. "Understood." As he left the observation chamber, he passed a group of cadets waiting outside. They whispered as he walked by. One said softly, "That's him, the human who spoke to the core." Ollie didn't react. He walked through the bright hall toward the garden outside. The air smelled of soft metal and green leaves. He sat by a small pond and opened his notebook again. He looked at the symbols he had drawn. Somehow, they felt alive now, as if they were breathing through the pages. He dipped the pen in ink again and began sketching what he had seen in the projection. The Korthas' home system, the swirling stars, and a glowing symbol that looked like a door. While he worked, a shadow fell across the page. He looked up and saw Instructor Vara standing nearby. "You should rest," she said. Allie smiled a little. "I like to keep my thoughts fresh." She sat on a nearby bench. "You surprised everyone today. Do you realize what you have done? The core hasn't responded to anyone in centuries. You made it speak." Elias shrugged gently. Maybe it was just waiting for a question it understood. Vara studied him carefully. "You think like no one I have met. Most cadets follow logic. You follow feeling." Lee looked at the water. "Logic tells us how things work. Feeling tells us why they matter." She nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why the Korthas language makes sense to you. It was made not for machines, but for hearts." Ali smiled faintly. "Maybe that is what connects all beings." They sat in silence for a while. The sun sank lower, and the light turned golden. Then a soft voice came from behind. A young cadet stood there holding a small data tablet. "Instructor Vara, the Council requests your presence." "The human cadet too?" Vara stood and nodded. "We are coming." Ali closed his notebook and followed her back inside. The council hall was large and round, filled with light. 7 elder scholars sat around a high table. Their faces were calm but serious. One of them spoke. Cadet Ali of Earth, you have achieved what no other being has done. You have awakened the Korthus core. We wish to understand how. Ali looked up at them. I didn't awaken it. I just read it with feeling. The elder leaned forward. Feeling cannot break ancient locks. Dolly smiled softly. Then maybe the lock wasn't meant to be broken by strength, but by empathy. The hall was silent for a moment. The elders looked at each other. Finally one said, the core revealed coordinates. We will send an expedition. We invite you to join as translator. Lee nodded respectfully. I accept. Vara looked proud. He will not fail you. The council dismissed them with formal words. As they walked out, Vara said quietly, You realize what this means? You will be the first human to visit the lost system of Korthus. Ali looked at the night sky through the glass ceiling. Maybe the first to listen to them completely. Far above, stars glimmered like endless lines of script, waiting to be read by someone patient enough to see their rhythm. The stars beyond Orontis's prime shimmered like silver dust scattered across black velvet. The great ship Aurora's Path moved quietly through the endless night. It was a vessel made for exploration, equipped with the best scanners and translation cores in the galaxy. Inside, a team of scientists, pilots, and scholars prepared for the journey ahead. Among them was Ali, the young human who had unlocked the Korthus core. His presence was both respected and questioned. Some of the crew admired his insight, while others thought his success had been luck. But everyone knew that, without him, his mission would not exist. Instructor Vara also joined the expedition as the lead scholar. She had grown curious about Ali's way of thinking. She often watched him from across the control room, noticing how he observed things others ignored. While others stared at glowing screens, Ali often stared at the stars outside the window, lost in quiet thought. The journey was long. Days passed as the ship moved through different sectors of space. The Korthus coordinates were ancient and unstable. Hidden inside a field of shifting energy that made navigation difficult, one evening, as the ship glided through a calm region of space, Vara approached Ali in the observation deck. The deck was large and filled with soft blue light. Through the glass, stars looked close enough to touch. You've been quiet, Vara said gently. Ali smiled a little. I'm thinking about what we might find. She folded her arms. Do you think the Korthas are still out there? Ali shook his head slowly. No, but I think they left something alive. Not a body, but a thought. Maybe a message still waiting to be finished. Vara nodded. A message written in emotion. Ali looked at her. Exactly. Just then a voice came through the communication line. Instructor Vara, Cadet Ali, please report to the command bridge. We have reached the boundary of the Korthus system. They hurried to the bridge. The main window displayed a strange view. The stars ahead were dimmer, covered by a faint mist that looked like moving glass. It shimmered with soft colors, like an ocean of light capped in Wren. A tall and calm being with skin like dark stone stood at the control panel. This is the Veil, he said. The coordinates match, but our scanners can't see beyond it. Ali stepped closer. Maybe it's a barrier made from energy. The captain nodded. Possibly. It blocks signals. We tried to send probes, but they vanish once they cross. Vara looked at Ali. What do you think? Ali studied the view. The mist pulsed gently, almost like breathing. It looks alive, he said softly, like it's waiting. Waiting for what? The captain asked. Ali thought for a moment. For someone who understands the language? Vara blinked. The script again? Ali nodded. The core said the one who hears us will find the gate. Maybe this is the gate, the captain frowned. We cannot risk the ship. The Veil could destroy us. Ali looked at his notebook. He opened it and turned to a page filled with symbols. He began tracing them slowly with his pen. Then he looked up at the glass. Can you project these symbols as light? Vara hesitated. You think that will help? It's worth trying, Ali said calmly. The captain agreed. Do it. Ali drew a sequence of Korthus symbols in the air using a digital stylus. The ship's projector displayed them as glowing marks across the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mist rippled, glowing brighter. The crew gasped as a circular opening formed in front of them, large enough for the ship to pass through. Vara looked at Ali in disbelief. "You opened it." Ali smiled slightly. "I didn't open it. I just said hello." The captain gave the command. "Move forward slowly." The ship entered the veil. Light surrounded them. It was not cold or harsh, but warm and gentle, like sunlight through water. Every surface shimmered. Then, suddenly, the mist faded, and a new sky appeared before them. The system of Corthus stretched out in silence. 7 planets orbited a small, golden sun. The nearest planet glowed faintly blue. The sensors came alive with readings. "Atmosphere stable," said the pilot. "Oxygen, nitrogen, similar to standard breathable mix," Vara whispered. "After 10,000 years, this place still breathes." The captain looked at Ali. "You led us here, cadet? Where do we begin?" Ali stared at the blue planet. "There," he said. "That's where the story continues." The ship descended through soft clouds. Below them, they saw vast fields of shining crystal and calm lakes reflecting the sky. Strange structures stood across the surface, shaped like spirals and towers. They looked empty, but peaceful. When they landed, the crew stepped out in protective suits. The air was clean and cool. The ground shimmered under the sunlight. Ali removed his helmet for a moment and took a breath. "It feels alive," he said. Vara looked around carefully. No signs of cities. No bodies. Just structures. They walked toward a large tower at the center of the plain. Its walls were covered in symbols similar to the ones Ali had translated. He ran his hand along the carvings, feeling the grooves. "These are messages," he said softly. "Not words. Memories." Inside the tower, the air was still. In the center stood a glowing stone, floating above a circular platform. It pulsed gently, just like the core back at the academy. Vara said quietly, "Another archive." Lee nodded. "The final one? Maybe." He stepped forward and placed his hand near the stone. The symbols around the walls began to glow. The crew held their breath. A calm light spread through the room. The stone projected an image in the era figure made of golden light. It looked neither human nor alien, but something in between. It had kind eyes and a calm face. A voice spoke soft and clear. "You have come far," Vara whispered, it speaking. Ali stepped closer. "Are you the Corthus?" The figure smiled. "We were. What remains of us is thought and memory." Ali bowed his head slightly. "We found your messages. We listened." The figure's light flickered gently. "Then you are the one who hears the silence." Ali nodded. "Yes, I only tried to understand." The figure looked around the room, as if seeing the others too. "We feared our silence would last forever. We tried to save ourselves through memory, but we learned that memory without feeling is empty. You have brought feeling back to our words. For that, we thank you." Vara asked softly, "What happened to your people?" The figure turned toward her. "We reached too far. We tried to make our thoughts eternal, but in doing so, we lost the warmth of living minds. We became echoes. When our world grew quiet, we waited for someone to feel what we could no longer feel." Ali listened with deep respect. "Your silence is over now. We will remember you." The figure's glow brightened. "We will give you our final gift. Take our knowledge, but remember our mistake. Let your words carry heart, not just logic." A beam of light touched Ollie's notebook. Symbols of light flowed into the pages. The pen in his hand glowed softly. Then the figure began to fade. "Our time is gone, but our message will live through you." Ali watched as the light vanished. The tower grew still again, but the air felt peaceful. Vara placed a hand on his shoulder. "They trusted you." Ali nodded slowly. "Maybe because humans still believe in feelings, not just numbers." They stepped outside. The sunlight was bright, and the air felt lighter than before. The crew looked at Ali with respect and quiet wonder. One of the scientists said, "You didn't just translate their language. You connected their hearts." Ali smiled softly. "Sometimes that's the same thing." They spent the next few days studying the planet. The data they collected showed strange harmony in everything: the soil, the light, even the air seemed balanced, as if the world itself was at peace. Ollie often sat near the lake, writing in his notebook. He wasn't just taking notes. He was recording feelings, shapes, and meanings the machines couldn't measure. Vara joined him one evening. The sky turned orange, and the two moons rose quietly. "What will you do when we return?" she asked. Allie looked at the horizon. "Maybe teach. Maybe help others see what I saw. The Academy will never forget you. You gave meaning to silence." Allie looked up at the stars. "We all listen to the universe. Most just forget to hear." The wind moved gently across the crystal fields, making a sound like soft music. It was as if the world itself was humming a goodbye. That night, before they left, Ollie walked once more to the tower. He placed his pen on the glowing stone and whispered softly, "Thank you." When he picked it up again, the pen glowed faintly blue, as if carrying the last spark of the Korthus memory. As the ship rose into the sky, the world below shimmered with quiet light. The Korthus were gone. But their message had reached a heart that understood. The Aurora's path turned toward the stars, leaving the silent planet behind. Yet somewhere deep in its core, the ship's sensors picked up a faint signal, a rhythm, like gentle breathing. It was the sound of life continuing through memory. Ollie looked out the window one last time. His notebook lay open beside him. On the last page, he had written only one line: to understand the universe, one must first learn to listen. The stars ahead sparkled brighter, and for a moment it felt as if the Korthas were smiling from beyond the silence. The Hall of Scholars was silent after the mid-trial review. The instructors had spoken little, only nodding to the participants and asking them to continue their work. The large holographic symbols floated in front of every cadet, glowing with a pale golden hue. The walls of the room were covered with moving diagrams, showing the fragments of the ancient language. Every student was lost in deep thought. Ollie sat quietly at his desk, the same calm expression on his face as before. His notebook was filled with lines, sketches, and arrows that connected strange-looking shapes. His pen moved slowly, and every now and then he would stop and stare at the symbols on his tablet. The others looked restless. They had used every translation method, but none seemed to make full sense. Some lines still remained unclear to all of them. Tan looked at Ali from the next desk. Taryn's thin arms moved quickly over a glowing board, adjusting formula after formula. He could not understand how Ali was so calm. For Taryn, this trial meant everything. His people had prepared for years, while this human had arrived late. Carrying only a pen, Ollie was writing something again, his hand steady. He stopped, then leaned back and closed his eyes. The room's low hum of machines filled the silence. A few cadets whispered about his strange method. Some said it was luck. Others thought humans were unpredictable. But the instructors were watching closely. One of the senior scholars, a tall being with silver eyes named Orin, stepped closer to Ali. His voice was soft, but carried authority. "Cadet Ali, are you certain about your interpretations? You have changed the sequence of symbols. That is not allowed under standard decoding rules." Ali looked up and replied with a gentle tone, "Sir, I believe the sequence is wrong because the script was not written in a single direction. The ancient writers used patterns based on meaning, not order." The hall grew quiet again. The instructors exchanged glances. No one had considered that before. Ali turned his notebook toward them. The paper was full of lines and circles connecting symbols in a complex web. He explained that the ancient writers might have used rhythm and emotional flow instead of a grammatical structure. Orin watched him carefully. "If you are wrong, you will fail this stage," he said. Ali nodded. "If I am wrong, I will still learn something new," he answered simply. The instructor gave a slow nod, then walked back to his desk. Some cadets smiled at Ali's courage, while others thought he was reckless. But deep inside, everyone was curious about what he would find. Ali continued to write, his mind racing through patterns and meanings. The ancient symbols began to take shape into ideas about unity, knowledge, and time. He realized that the script was not just communication, It was a record of understanding. The more he studied, the more he felt the depth behind the words. After several hours, the large central clock signaled the approach of the next evaluation. The cadets were to present their partial translations. One by one, the participants came forward. Each read their work, showing diagrams and formulas. The instructors listened carefully, making notes. Some translations were accurate but mechanical, while others lacked depth. When it was Ali's turn, he walked slowly to the center. He placed his notebook on the glass podium. The holographic projector scanned his notes and displayed them above the crowd. The symbols appeared in golden lines, moving like living light. Ali took a breath. The ancient script, he began, is not only a record of words, it is a record of thought. Each symbol carries an emotion as well as an idea. The writers did not use punctuation. They used silence. A murmur passed through the audience. The instructors leaned forward. Ali pointed to one section of the projection. This part speaks of a bridge of minds. It means understanding between beings who think differently. The script says the bridge can only form when both sides change shape, like letters adjusting to fit. Oren raised an eyebrow. And how did you reach that conclusion? Ali smiled faintly. Because the symbols themselves change shape when translated by different systems. I noticed it when my tablet misread a curve. Instead of correcting it, I followed the mistake. It revealed a hidden meaning. The hall filled with low murmurs again. One of the cadets, a tall-scaled student from another world, said loudly, "You followed an error? That is not logic." Ali turned to him and answered calmly, "Sometimes understanding comes from seeing why an error happens. Humans learn by mistakes." The scaled cadet had no reply. The instructors whispered among themselves. They had never heard a human explain knowledge like this before. Oren spoke again, this time with interest. "You suggest that the script changes itself through perception?" "Yes," Ali said. "It adapts. It tests the reader. The more open the mind, the clearer it becomes. That is why machines cannot read it perfectly. The script wants to be understood, not decoded." Silence fell again. The instructors had studied languages for centuries, yet this simple human explanation carried weight. Oren nodded slowly. "Continue your work, Cadet Ali," he said. "You may be closer to the truth than we thought." Ali returned to his seat. His hands trembled slightly, but his heart felt steady. The others avoided speaking to him now, though many kept glancing in his direction. Some were jealous, some curious, and a few inspired. The trial continued into the evening. The lights dimmed slightly, and the room's temperature dropped. The sound of pens, stylus clicks, and tablet taps filled the air. Ali felt his energy fading, but he refused to stop. He had to finish. As he worked, he noticed something strange. The symbols he had written earlier seemed to shift on the page. Their shapes were not the same as before. For a moment, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. He blinked, but the shapes stayed different. They seemed alive. He touched the page with his pen, tracing the curves. Then he realized the symbols had rearranged themselves into a clearer form. It was like the ancient writers were guiding him, approving his progress. Ali felt a calm wave inside his chest. Hours passed. The last bell rang, marking the end of the day's session. The cadets were ordered to rest before the final evaluation. But Ali stayed behind, staring at his notes. Oren approached quietly. "You found something new, didn't you?" the instructor asked. Ali nodded. "The script speaks about light and thought being the same. It says that every being leaves a trace in the pattern of time. The writers must have believed that knowledge is eternal." Oren looked thoughtful. "If your reading is correct, this discovery will change everything we know about that civilization." "You have done well, human." Ali bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir. But I think I am still learning. There is something missing. I can feel it." Instructor smiled faintly. "That is what makes you different. Most students stop once they find answers. You continue until you understand." As Oren left, Ali looked at the glowing symbols one last time. His heart felt light but full. He realized that this trial was not only about knowledge, it was about how far one's curiosity could go. The pen in his hand was simple, yet it had helped him uncover something that machines and formulas could not. He packed his notebook and stood by the window of the great hall. Outside, the twin moons shone over the academy's towers. The air shimmered with quiet energy. He knew the final stage would be harder, but he felt ready. In the silence, a thought came to him. Maybe the question he had asked earlier, original font or improved, was not just about the script, it was about understanding itself. Should knowledge stay in its old form, or be improved by every new mind that touches it? Ali smiled softly. He had no answer yet, but he was eager to find out. The stars above seemed to watch him, as if waiting for what the human would do next. Tomorrow, the final trial would begin. And this time, Ali would not just decode the script, he would reveal its soul. Morning light touched the tall towers of the Grand Academy. The sky had a soft golden hue, and the air was calm. Inside the Great Hall, the cadets gathered for the final part of the trial. The atmosphere was tense, yet filled with excitement. This was the moment they had all prepared for. The final task was said to be the hardest of all. It would decide who among them truly understood the ancient script, not just its words, but its meaning. Ali entered quietly, carrying his notebook and pen as always. The other cadets had new digital tools, glowing scanners, and translation modules. But Ali still preferred his simple pen. Many noticed him as he walked to his seat. Some nodded with respect, others stayed silent, unsure whether to treat him as a rival or a mystery. The chief instructor, Oren, stepped forward. His silver eyes glowed faintly under the hall lights. "Cadets," he began, "you have all reached the final stage of the trial. Today, you will be given the most difficult part of the ancient script. It is the final inscription found on the crystal tablet. This piece is believed to hold the closing message of the lost civilization. It is not enough to translate it. You must understand it. Only those who can explain its true meaning will pass." The lights dimmed slightly, and a large hologram appeared at the center of the hall. The ancient symbols glowed with a deep blue light. The lines were elegant, but their meaning was hidden behind layers of mystery. Each cadet received a copy of the script on their desk. The final trial had begun. Ali stared at the hologram for a long time. The symbols looked familiar, yet something about them felt different. They seemed alive, changing slightly each time he blinked. He picked up his pen and started to draw the symbols in his notebook. Slowly, he began to notice connections between them. Some symbols repeated in patterns, while others changed form when placed beside certain shapes. While the other cadets rushed to analyze every mark using their devices, Ali took a different approach. He tried to feel what the symbols were trying to express. He whispered the sounds in his mind, wondering if the meaning came from rhythm instead of logic. Hours passed. The room was silent, except for the soft tapping of keys and the faint sound of paper turning. The air was heavy with focus. One by one, some cadets began to stand and present their translations. Their versions were precise, but each sounded mechanical, lacking soul. The instructors listened and nodded politely, yet none of the answers seemed to satisfy them. When it was Ali's turn, he stood up slowly. His notebook was full again, filled with neat lines, sketches, and connected words. He walked to the front, where the hologram floated above the stage. Oren looked at him carefully. "Are you ready, Cadet Ali?" he asked. Ali nodded. "I am ready, sir." The hall grew silent. Even the machines stopped humming for a moment, as if waiting to hear him. Ali raised his notebook. "The final inscription," he said, "is not only a message, it is a farewell and a beginning at the same time." The ancient writers were not just recording history. They were leaving guidance for whoever found their words. He pointed at one symbol shaped like a circle with a line across it. "This symbol," he explained, "represents the cycle of time. But when combined with this next one, it becomes a symbol of renewal. Together, they say, what ends also begins again." Oren nodded slowly. "Continue." Ali turned a page. The next set of symbols forms a pattern that means shared thought. It appears 3 times. I believe it means that the writers wanted the reader to think with them, not just read them. That is why the script changes shape when read differently. It invites the reader to become part of the message. The cadets began whispering. They had never heard such an interpretation before. Ali continued. And this line near the end, it looks broken, but it is not. It represents silence. It is the part of the message that cannot be written. The ancient writers believed silence was also language, one that only a thoughtful reader could hear. Oren stepped closer. And what do you believe the final line says, Cadet Ali? Ali took a deep breath. His voice softened as he read from his notebook. The final line says, "The light we carried is not ours alone. It belongs to all who seek it." The hall went completely quiet. The symbols above him glowed brighter for a brief moment, then slowly dimmed. As if the ancient script itself acknowledged the truth of his translation. The instructors looked at one another. Oren turned toward the council and said, "This is the most complete and meaningful translation we have ever seen. The human's interpretation captures the thought and the spirit of the ancient script." Ali bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, sir. I only followed what the symbols showed me." One of the other instructors, a soft-spoken scholar named Mirel, stepped forward. "How did you manage to see what others could not?" she asked. Ali smiled gently. "Because I stopped looking for answers and started listening to what the symbols wanted to say. Sometimes knowledge is not about control. It is about understanding." Instructors exchanged silent approval. Then Oren addressed the hall. "The trial is complete. The human cadet, Ali, has not only decoded the script, but also restored its meaning. For the first time in our history, a being has read the ancient language as it was meant to be read." Applause filled the hall. The sound echoed against the walls, warm and powerful. The other cadets stood and clapped, some smiling, others thoughtful. They had witnessed something rare, a moment when creativity and understanding had triumphed over pure logic. Ali stood there quietly, feeling a wave of calm pride. For a long time, humans were considered slow learners among the galactic scholars. But today, he had shown that the human way of thinking, the way of curiosity, patience, and imagination, had its own strength. After the ceremony, Oren approached him once again. "You have done something remarkable today," he said. "You have reminded us that knowledge is alive. It grows when it is shared, not when it is locked in rules." Ali smiled. "Thank you, sir. I believe every language has a heart. We only need to listen carefully to hear it." Oren placed a hand on Ali's shoulder. "The Academy will keep your translation as part of its archives. Your method will be taught to future scholars. You have changed how we study ancient knowledge." Ali bowed respectfully. "I am honored, sir. I only hope others will continue to improve it." That night, the Academy held a small gathering. Lights glowed softly across the garden terrace, and cadets shared stories and laughter. Terran, the alien who once doubted Ali, walked up to him. "You changed my view of learning," Terran said. "At first, I thought humans were slow because they used simple tools. But now I see that simplicity can reveal truths machines overlook." Ali smiled and replied, "Sometimes a pen can write what a machine cannot. It carries thought through the hand, not just data." Terran nodded, a small smile forming on his face. "Then may your pen never stop writing, friend." As the night grew darker, Ali looked at the twin moons above. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, reminding him of the ancient writers whose message he had just uncovered. He wondered how long their civilization had been gone, and whether they had imagined someone from another world would someday understand their words. In that quiet moment, he felt a connection beyond time. It was as if the ancient writers were still there, speaking softly through the symbols. The next morning, a message appeared on the Academy's main screen. It announced the results officially. The human cadet Ali had earned the highest honor ever granted in the field of translation studies. His work would become the foundation for a new field called living linguistics, dedicated to exploring languages that could adapt to thought. But Ali was not seeking fame. He spent the morning in the study hall, copying the ancient lines again in his notebook, not for records, but for peace. Each stroke of his pen reminded him that learning never ends. When Oren came to see him one last time, he found Ali sitting near the window. "You could have asked for any position, any reward," Oren said. "Why stay here and write?" Ali looked up and smiled. Because the script still has more to say. I can feel it. Every time I read it, it teaches me something new. The instructor nodded. Perhaps that is the true meaning of knowledge, to never stop listening. Ali returned his gaze to the notebook. The sunlight touched the page, making the ink shimmer faintly. He thought again about the question he had asked on the first day of the trial, original font or improved. Now he understood its full meaning. It was not only about letters, but about growth itself. Knowledge must keep its original truth, but it should also improve with every new mind that learns it. The pen moved again, smooth and steady. Line after line appeared as he wrote, his thoughts flowing with clarity. Outside, the world was quiet, yet Ali knew something had changed forever. Humanity had proven that wisdom did not come from power or technology alone. It came from the courage to ask questions, even simple ones. And so, in the heart of the Grand Academy, among the brightest minds of many worlds, a human with a pen reminded them all that the search for understanding was endless and that every question, no matter how small, could open the door to something greater. The final light of day touched the halls, and the story of the ancient script became part of a new beginning. Carried forward by the one who dared to ask, original font or improved,